Hello, everybody, and welcome once again to my blog. My name is Alan Shisco. I am a motion graphics artist based out of Toronto, Canada, and serving the world from here. Today I'm going to take a look at a little section of a project that I just finished recently for a client. I'm assuming that you've already taken a look at the link on my blog that shows you the finished QuickTime movie. If you haven't done that yet, I would suggest that you do that, just so that you're familiar about what I'm going to be talking about here. So let's go over to the After Effects project and get right to it. So the basic idea here, the composition itself, the basic idea was that we had all these elements here, and we were going to place them on a desk. And as you can see, a lot of the graphics in the piece were there to support the editorial message that was being conveyed by the script, by the voiceover. So, usually what happens when you set up a project like this is you put all your layers onto, you make them all into 3D layers, of course. Every one of these is their own layer, and you put them into your composition. And then you orbit a camera around. You animate the camera, and then, it does what it's supposed to do. It orbits around a 3D space. Now, the trouble that you can run into, though, is if all of these layers are in the same Z space position, and you'll recall that if a layer is 3D, it's got three axes. One is X, which is left to right. One is Y, which is top to bottom. And one is Z, which is up and down. Now, if all these layers are laid out in Z space, you can run into situations where After Effects has to decide which one of the intersecting layers should be on top and which one should be on bottom. And you especially run into this problem when you start throwing in some lights and you start casting shadows. Now, bear with me here, and I'll show you exactly what I'm talking about. This was an early render. This is just after I took everything and just threw it onto the stage and did a quick little render, just a mock-up, just to see what it looks like. Now, keep an eye right here, right at this little spot right here. You can see there's a Polaroid film right here and another one right here, and they were on exactly the same Z space depth, okay? I'm going to go just frame by frame through here and watch what happens. Look at that. See that little dark spot there? And as we go along, there it is again, and it disappears for a couple of frames and comes back, and so on and so forth. Let's go on a little bit further into the composition. Now look right up here. This is really subtle, and it might be difficult to see with the compression of this clip, but watch this, leaf right here. It's supposed to be underneath the sun-based dial here, but they're actually on exactly the same Z space. So watch what happens. Can you see that? It's really, really subtle. Just like that. You can see a little bit of it darkening. So that's what happens sometimes when you've got shadows involved in 3D compositions. When After Effects is rendering from frame to frame, it's having a hard time deciding exactly what should be shown, and you get this this kind of strobing effect that happens. So, in the past, what I would do is, let's just go over here. This is kind of a mock-up of the project itself. What I would do is I would select all the layers. I would open the position parameter by hitting the P key. You can see this is the X parameter, that's Y, and there's the magic number right there, Z. You can see that all these layers are currently in Z. So what I would do to get rid of the flashing, I would go to every one of these, and I go here and I go 1 pixel, tab, 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 2 pixels, 1.1 pixels, etc., etc., etc. And I'd change the position of every one of those layers. And I mean, it's not a big deal for something like this. There's only 15 layers here. But if you've got a composition where you've got 100 or 200, that's going to start getting pretty time-consuming. So fortunately, Zaxworks to the rescue here. Zaxworks, let me actually bring up their website here. How do you spell? Anybody know? Zaxworks.com. There we go. Layer Tools, new product that just got released by Zaxworks, and I'm going to show you a little bit how I use them today just to make my life a little bit easier. So back to composition. Now, the layer tools are not actually plugins. They're what's called keyframe assistants. So I'm just going to minimize this window so we can take a look at this. So just to review, all these layers are in the same Z space depth. If I hit the C key, I'm going to bring up my little camera orbit tool, and I'm going to lower it down, lower it a little more. Watch what happens when we get equal to the plane. Bah, everything disappears like that, okay? They're all flat, they're all on the same level. So what I want to do so that I don't end up with that ringing that I was talking about earlier is I want to distribute them all in Z space depth. So let's do it, but instead of going through object by object and changing the Z space depth, this is what I'm going to do. I'm going to select all the layers that I want to offset, just like that. I'm going to go up to, not to Effect, because remember I said this wasn't Effect. I'm going to go to Animation, Keyframe Assistant, ZW, Layer, Z Distribution. I'm going to bring that up. Now, it's a pretty simple looking palette. There aren't really that many choices that you have to make here. First thing you got to do is select what camera you're going to use. You got to have a camera in the composition. How many units you want it offset. This is actually quite a lot, and all I'm going to do, I just want them offset just ever so slightly, because if they're offset really big, they're not going to look like they're sitting on the desk there. Okay, so I'm just going to change this to just 3, something really simple. Now, we could do this in several ways. We could, as far as the distribution style goes, we could get it to do an even spread selection order, which means it'll start at the top layer and move them off ever so slightly all the way down in Z space depth. But in this case, what I want to do is just roll the dice a little bit. I'm going to take a random spread, random order, and see what happens. Now, I'm going to uncheck Preserve Screen Size here. We're going to take a look at that a little bit later to see what that does. I'm going to uncheck there and watch closely what happens. Watch all the layers, watch all the layers. Here we go. I'm going to hit the button now. Something happened. A couple of these layers kind of popped forth or back. We're not sure. But other than that, didn't seem to be a whole lot that went on. Let's maximize our screen here. I'm just going to close up the window there. And I'm going to hit the P key, which brings up the position parameter. And now look at what we got here. Every one of these layers has a slightly different Z space. All right? And that was exactly what I wanted to set out to do. If I were to render this now, I'm not going to be getting any shadows because, or any flickering, sorry, because all these layers are offset slightly in Z space. All right? So there we go. I just saved myself, well, in this case, probably 5 minutes. If there are a whole lot of layers, I might have saved, I don't know, an afternoon, whatever the case may be. So there's one use of Zaxworks layer distribution, Z layer distribution in action. Can save you a lot of time doing that. Let's take a look at another way that we can use the layer tools for something else. All right. So, if you noticed at the very beginning of the animation, where's the light here? No, I didn't turn that on. It starts off with the logo there, and then the camera sort of goes down beside the logo, and we go in closer to the desktop here. If I click and drag, we can duplicate that here somewhat. There we go. The camera movement goes, and we come down to the desktop right there. All right. Now, if you look really closely, you can see that when we go by this layer here, moves kind of funny, right? There's something slightly different about it because they're not quite moving in relation to one another like you would expect. And that's because they're offset slightly in 3D, in Z space, okay? I'm going to hit the F11 key so that I can go to my custom view. And now if I orbit around a little bit here, there are the logo elements right there. Let me just move to my move. We'll move that over there a little bit. And you can see that if you start off in the very top, it looks just like it's supposed to look, but when it moves down, look at that, they're offset in Z space. One is higher than the other. Now this is really, really subtle, the look on this Grow Charity logo, because there are such big pieces and everything. What I'm going to do here is I'm going to go back to my camera. F12 will bring me back there. I'm going to select the label group and turn them off. Then I'm going to select the label group of this other one here. This is going to better illustrate what I'm talking about here, and I'm going to turn that on. Now, what I have here is a little part of an American dollar bill. Now, if you look at it, it just looks like a cutout of the circular part of the dollar. If I were to, let's just take a middle one here. I'm going to solo that so we can take a look at it. You can see that this layer is actually just a section of it, a cylinder. If I go down to the next one, there you go. There's the cylinder a little bit further out, and so on and so forth. Each one of these layers it has just been cut up and sliced and diced so that it's a bunch of donuts. So now what we got to do is we'll go through our animation again and see how this looks. Okay, the camera starts moving down. There we go, and we go past the American Eagle there. Okay, there you go. It is what it is. Nice camera movement. We go past it, and we get to where we want to be. How can we make this a little bit more interesting? Okay, you'll recall that I used masks, and I separated everything here so that they're all in different spaces. Zaxworks again. I'm going to select all the layers that I want to manipulate here. I'm going to go up to Animation, Keyframe Assistant, ZW Layer, Z Distribution. I'm going to select the camera that we had earlier, Camera 2. sorry, different camera in this comp, I should say. Now remember, when we offset it in the last time, it was just a very little, just a tiny, tiny little bit. In this case, I want to offset it a lot more. I'm going to do like 400 units here. And I'm going to change the distribution style to, well, why don't we do even spread selection order and see what happens. Now, I was talking about this little checkbox right here, preserve screen size. In this case, I'm going to turn it on. I'm going to go over to the apply button. Now again, watch what happens. Watch what happens. Watch what happens. Nothing. Nothing happened. What the heck? Let's take a little bit closer look though. I'll hit my P key, and you can see that actually the Z space of every one of these layers did change. Remember, they were all the same when I began, but visually it looks like nothing changed right here at all. And that's because when you have preserve screen size checked, the keyframe assistant will distribute all these layers just like I ask it to, but it'll also change the scale of the layers automatically so that visually at this point it looks exactly as if all the layers were on the same Z space. Pretty confusing, eh? Let's go over to the custom view though, and we'll take a look here. And there you go. Now you can see that we've actually got a little pyramid going on right there where it used to be flat. So if we go hit the F12 key to go back to the camera here, and we're going to now go through it, and the camera starts moving, going down. Look at that. We got all those nice little lines there, and the camera kind of flies through there just like so. Pretty neat, eh? So, what we did is we took a layer that was sliced and diced. You can do it in After Effects like I did with masks, or you can do it in Photoshop and cut them up however you want. Then use Zaxworks Z distribution to keep it looking the same, but distribute it in Z depth space. And then when you do your camera moves, you can just give it that extra little kick. Make it look just that extra little bit better. So, there you go. Zaxworks layer Z distribution, one way or two ways, I guess, that you can use it. And I hope that that gave you a few ideas on something else that you can do, and that hopefully you learned a couple of things from this particular entry. My name again is Alan Shisco. I can be reached at effector.ca, and hope you all enjoyed this little presentation. All right, talk to you again soon. Bye.